Please welcome Global Head of Merchant Sales and Acquiring, Visa, Susan Carrere, for a discussion moderated by Skift President Carolyn Cremens.
Close your eyes and think about your most vivid travel memories. What made that trip unique and special? Was it that great bowl of pasta, bolognese made by Nonna in the kitchen in Florence? Was it the local art gallery where you bought that graffiti print still hanging in your home? Or maybe it was that lamb's wool sweater that you snagged in New Zealand. Whether it's the restaurants, the cocktail scene, the shopping, the street tours, the galleries, you name it, it comes down to the local experience. It's the small businesses and the people who run them that make travel special and memorable. Small businesses define the character of a destination, and we need to ensure that local businesses not only survive, but that they thrive. So I'm so glad to be here today with Susan Carrere, Global Head of Merchant Sales and Acquiring at Visa. I know it's late for you, Susan. Welcome.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Visa has stepped up aggressively to support local businesses around the world. We heard earlier today from Sebastian Bazan, the CEO of Accor, about how small businesses are super essential to the travel industry, both in terms of providing jobs and also preserving the very essence and uniqueness of the destination. So the travel recovery is not going to happen without these small businesses. So to start, Susan, can you share a little bit more on the impact small businesses have on tourism?
Look, I can only reiterate what Sebastian would have said, which is, yes, they are the bulk of businesses around the world. They overweight on GDP and on employment. Most businesses carry that through their supply chain. When we look at our business, small businesses account for the largest part of our footprint. And as you know, we're in the business of driving acceptance of Visa products around the world. So much more of that is carried through that small business footprint. They also do more than that. They are the heartbeat of most communities, right? They are what makes communities tick. So as we think about what's going on in the world doesn't come back to good unless small businesses do. As we think about what's happening in tourism, given their outside footprint in tourism doesn't come back to good until small businesses do. So we have to put a ton of our weight to get them back into action.
Yeah, I just recently went back into New York City, which is my hometown, and I was really so shocked to see how devastating the pandemic has been. I mean, there were so many stores, the one after the next, they were boarded up, the gates were down, they were out of business. And many local shops around the world, they continue to experience real hardship. So what is the outlook for small businesses and their survival during the pandemic and beyond?
I mean, quite honestly, it is a terrifying time to be a small business. You described the impact that they felt here, there, and around the world. It's quite real. If you look at the data that's out there, and if you listen to them, so the data says that, and this is a study from Yahoo, that likely more than half of those small businesses that have closed won't reopen. If you look at a similar study by McKinsey, which is focused on the tourism industry, it says about the same things. So this is a really tough time for them. When we look at our data, one of the things we've seen is that small businesses were first and most negatively affected when COVID happened. And as a number of businesses come back up, small businesses have been slower to recover. So back to the point we started on, which is we've got to do more to get them through this transition and then to prepare them for what the new reality is likely to hold. So we've been talking to many of them. In fact, we've listened to close to 200,000 small businesses just in the last 6 months alone here in the US. And one of the things I wanted to share today was some of the feedback that we've heard from them. On the one hand, it's been tough. But on the other hand, there are some inspiring stories coming out of this crisis. So today I wanted to share the story of a couple. It's Siobhan and Leikandra Davis. They own a small shop called The Farmery. It's in Nashville. Nashville, as we know, is a city that's built around tourism. So why don't we play the video and just hear a little bit about what they've been going through and how they're thinking about reinvention.
Coronavirus has impacted our business tremendously. It's something that has caused us to really make some adjustments and some very hard decisions about the future of our business. We miss people visiting Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville is a tourist-heavy city. Nashville's commerce relies on the tourists that come here. We are in a tourist-heavy neighborhood, at least we were. Before COVID, this neighborhood was lively almost 5 to 6, 7 days a week. And now this area, because of COVID, is really scarce, and we were really heavily dependent on that tourist traffic. And Nashville, as a city, has suffered so much because of COVID. Being able to get back to business means surviving. It means celebrating.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Getting back to business means surviving. It means celebrating. So well said. And that barbecue, by the way, looks amazing. If I was in Nashville, I would be going there right now. But we're 6 months. We're 6 months into the pandemic, and we're starting to see some bright spots. Skift does a monthly travel tracker study, and the last one that just came out last week shows that 36% of the U.S. population traveled in August, which is up from the low of 19% in April. And as we all know, most are traveling regionally, they're traveling domestically. And as we move into the fall, we're seeing that confidence is holding somewhat strong. So in that sense, this crisis is going to give local and small businesses a great advantage as we're starting to see these bright spots. So what opportunities does it present, and what specifically is Visa doing to help prepare businesses to reopen safely?
Yeah, great question. Let me match up first on what we're seeing, right? So I love the fact that we've seen businesses around the world begin to reopen, right? And it's topical, right? Because as policies change around the world, here in the UK, we're bracing perhaps for another 2-week lockdown. We'll hear what Boris has to say this evening. But when we look more closely at our data, cross-border clearly still depressed, right? That's not a surprise to anyone. What's really been interesting, though, is what's happening domestically. So auto and home rental up to pre-COVID levels. It's not terrible in cross-border. I mean, we've seen some return in cross-border, but it's nowhere near the same level it was before the pandemic. So the good news is that as people travel locally, it's a return to in-store commerce. The other bit of news is as more people shop in commerce, given the COVID environment, it's a return to more safe and more secure commerce, which means we're seeing a rise in contactless. So we're doing a couple of things to get a number of businesses ready for this new reality, because our anticipation is that consumer behavior will likely remain unchanged even as we come to the other side. So 3 things I want to hit on quickly. The first is that we've been all over Contactless Limit. I mean, in London, we are tappers. We've been tapping for a really long time. In the US, you're seeing just a rise in tap to pay, which is a good thing. And the higher the limits are, frankly, the less friction there is in the shopping experience. So that's a big thing. The other thing we're doing is making sure that consumers have the capacity to tap to pay. So through June, we had issued about 80 million contactless cards. We're on track to do over 300 million newly issued cards by the end of this year, which is huge, but it's also a good sign that there is captive demand out there and folks are ready to get out there and spend at these local businesses. The last piece is how we're helping these businesses get ready. I mean, I can't say enough about how important it is to be ready for these consumers. Consumers have said loudly and clearly, 2/3 of them in a last survey we did, that if they don't feel safe, they won't shop there. So one of the things we're doing is making sure through this effort we call our street teams that we're equipping small businesses with how to turn on point of sale, how to make sure that they maintain a contactless environment, and then where to ensure that their business is well positioned for consumers who want to know where to shop safely. Lots happening.
A lot, and that's a lot of contactless cards you're going to be working on getting out before the end of the year. But beyond the Street Team initiative, I know you're doing so much, and I'd love for our audience to know about some of the programs. And one, because Visa can help. We have a lot of small business owners who are listening right now, and two, other so you can show other brands how they can use their brand power for good.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about that? Yeah.
I wish I had all day, but I don't. So I'll focus in on two things because we are doing a lot. I mean, we're doing a bunch of things, from how we reset policy, talk to our regulators, make sure they're supportive of a push to digital because that's what consumers demand, and then all the way through to enabling businesses in a variety of ways. So let me highlight two things that have been quite material for us. A couple of months ago, Al announced a commitment to putting 50 million small businesses on our network. And the way we want to get there is in a few different ways. We're leveraging partners, so we have a number of technology enabling partners who play a critical role in helping small business set up their online shops, to helping small businesses with simple tools for how to leverage marketing and data. So that's one big thing. The second big thing we're doing within that is making sure we incent consumers to use their spending power at local businesses. So we've been driving a campaign called Where You Shop Matters to make sure that consumers have a sense for the benefits of being able to shop local. We've done a bunch of things with fraud, because fraud is obviously something we all have to worry about. The more e-commerce goes up, the more we're likely to see fraud play a role. So we're putting a bunch of fraud tools out there and making sure that our partners understand the way in which they can leverage those tools and the data that goes with those tools. And then obviously we're making it easier for small businesses to run, fund, and grow their businesses by putting a whole bunch of information on what we call our small business hubs. And we have these hubs at visa.com all around the world. The second big thing is making money easier. And I should just reframe a couple of things that have happened here. I mentioned that we've been talking to close to 200,000 small businesses. We heard a lot from them about what was critical. Number one at the top of the list was getting access to funding. So a few months ago, we announced a $210 million grant. The focus of that grant is on featuring female business owners, and then a double click on Black female business owners. We want to make it easier for them to get access to capital, which is a big part of the push to keep these businesses trading.
Yeah, so that partnership, which is, I think it's called I Fund Women, right? I think it's fantastic. I mean, what a great partnership, because you offer, as you mentioned, capital. You offer coaching to a network, and there's a network of business owners that they can consult with. And in particular, you're focusing in on Black women entrepreneurs so they can get their businesses up and running. Can you just share a little bit more about some of the stories? I know that you just had a recent grant program that you did, a contest that you did, and the winners were announced yesterday. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I can indeed. So listen, we wanted to make sure that we hit these women up with the aid they needed. $10,000 in grants was about the sweet spot that's needed to open a small business in a country like the US. So the grants are about that size. And by the way, 10,000 is below the marker of where big public funds are available. You can't get to private equity that way, you can't get to venture. So 10,000 was a sweet spot we wanted to go after. So we announced a series of grants with our partner, iFund Women. The last grant was the series of funds that we put aside for Black female small business owners. And I think I'll close with the story of Sindrea. Sindrea owns this beauty supply shop. It's called the Cultured Beauty Supply Shop. She saw a need. She saw that there was an absence of beauty supply stores that catered to Black women with natural hair. She also went a step further, and she had an idea to customize and allow consumers to shop and mix product on their own. When we told her the news last week, and I was one of the lucky colleagues who got to share this news with her and our partner Karen Khan from iFund Women, I asked her what was the one thing she wanted to do with this money, and she said one word: digital, right? During COVID, she has taught herself to code and rebuilt an app for her store. She's been very focused on infrastructure. So her intention is to take the funds, use them to help improve the mobile app experience, help extend the infrastructure they need for their physical stores, and buy more product. This is how we stand up women, by helping them extend their businesses and helping them reinvest those earnings into communities and turning the world back on, one business at a time.
Fantastic. And she taught herself how to code. One of my favorite winners is Patrice Banks, who has her business is Girls Auto Clinic, which is a fully owned and operated by female mechanics. And the best part is that they have a salon where you can get your nails done while you're waiting for your auto repair. Susan, this has been such a powerful conversation, not only to hear about all the tremendous work that Visas is doing to support small business owners and women, especially women of color, but also the direct impact that small businesses have as it relates to the travel industry. Thank you so much for sharing, and keep up the excellent work on behalf of Visa.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you to your team at Skift. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.